Hey, what's going on, everybody? We are live after what, like a fucking 3-week period with Super Deformed Gamescast. This is episode 97. Now, we were going to do our Game of the Year show this year, but I think what we decided to do instead, because as you can see, we're working on a smaller crew than we normally have. Tonight, we are going to talk about some of our biggest disappointments in 2017, and also what we think that everybody can look forward to in 2018, both from what we know is coming, and also from the perspective of what we think and what we hope is going to come. And hopefully Brandon and Finn will join us as well. I don't know where they're at, but I know they're supposed to be here. So guys, if you can hear me, jump in. Links in the DM. Anyway, guys, it is nice to be back talking with everybody once again. And without any further ado, I figure, let's just cut the bullshit and jump right into it. So 2017, right off the bat, a lot of people say that this has been one of the best years for gaming in the past decade. And I wanted to see what you guys thought about that. And Zach, why don't we start with you, and then we'll move on to Jay and Sam, and I'll give my take on it. So Zach, I don't know, man. What are your thoughts on 2017 as a whole?
As a whole, 2017, easily one of the best years in gaming that I can remember. But there are some doozies in there, and even looking back through my backlog, there were some games that I just totally forgot came out this year. I'm excited to kind of delve into that.
All right, and Jay, what about you, man? Where does 2017 fall on the spectrum for you?
It was a year full of video games, like every other year before it. Ever since video games were invented, there were some really good ones, there were some really bad ones, and there were some ones that got a lot of criticism online, like Star Wars Battlefront 2.
That is a stirring assessment of what 2017 was. Maybe the most literal assessment I have heard yet.
It was a great year for games. I think personally, it was just a shit year for everything else.
It really was. We're not even going to get into.
Thank God we have gaming.
Yeah.
Yes, Guy. Can you imagine can you imagine in 2017 if we did not have games? Like if none of this was here? Like, I mean, can you? Holy fucking shit! And Sam, what about you, man? How did 2017 treat you compared to years prior?
Again, as long as we're talking about gaming, the fact is 2017 is one of the best years in an incredibly long time. I mean, and that's no disrespect to prior years this gen. I mean, 2014 and 2015 were solid. 2016 was stellar, but this has been insane. I had more trouble picking my game of the year this year than I've had trouble picking good games in years past. It's
interesting.
It's ridiculous.
Honestly, this is something I thought about long and hard. And I cannot remember, personally, again, from a gaming standpoint, I can't remember a better year since, I think the last time I was this satisfied with a year in gaming was maybe 2004. Right off the bat, at the beginning of the year, you had games like Nier Automata, which, was, I thought it was okay, but a lot of people seem to love it. Nioh was good. Resident Evil 7 was completely reinvented that series. And by the way, the DLC, I finished the DLC recently, and they're
good.
They're both very short, but both very good.
Yes.
Especially Not a Hero. It was just nice playing as Chris Redfield again.
Yeah.
And I thought it ended in kind of a rote manner, okay, it's Resident Evil and the bad guy turns into a giant monster and then you fight him. I didn't think the battle with Lucas Baker was as compelling as the ones with his father Jack. But again, a stellar end, kind of a stellar bookend to that game. You had games like Persona 5, which is touted by many people as one of the greatest JRPGs in the past decade. The list fucking goes on and on and on. PUBG, which is that's the new big phenomenon in gaming. I would say I would actually
game at this point. It's a lifestyle.
It really is. Well, I would say I had this conversation with somebody offline, and I think PUBG is the biggest gaming phenomenon since the inception of Minecraft.
Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
love it, hate it. PUBG has taken the multiplayer world by storm, and it will never be the same.
It
Do
kind
you
of reminds
guys-
me of Halo 2 back in the day when that first came out.
Yep.
That's a good comparison, actually. That's a really interesting comparison. I don't know. You know what? Let's talk about that for a minute. PUBG. What are we at? Like 30 million players worldwide across PC
Yeah,
and
over that
Xbox?
at this point.
Yep.
That's
I mean,
God,
Steam
that's fucking
Spy, which is
insane.
the only one. We don't have a reliable source for the Xbox numbers besides what they tell us, but I mean, a while ago it was at 2 million.
It was at 2 million or something like that, right?
Well, and
You
that
can
was, I think those
easily assume
numbers. I think those numbers were before the holiday too. And because they're doing
Yeah,
physical
exactly.
release on Xbox, it potentially could be quite a bit higher now.
The physical release has been doing really well on the US and UK Amazon charts. I mean, just to give you an idea of how popular this thing is, you can find a match instantaneously if you're in Australia on the Oceania servers, and
Wow.
that doesn't happen for most multiplayer games.
So, you know, like anytime this happens, like, I mean, I would say probably once every 4 or 5 years, you get that game that comes out that just captures everybody's attention, right? And like, I think the closest thing we've had before PUBG, like I said, was you know, Minecraft, and it's been a while since Minecraft came out. Do you and again, I guess you could kind of use this to get into a 2018 conversation as well. With the success of PUBG, do you guys see other established series introducing their own battle royale modes? Like what about something like Destiny 2 or something like Battlefront 2 or Battlefield or Call of Duty, or even something like Gears of War? Do you think that this is going to become the new normal for multiplayer games going forward? Because look at what it did for Fortnite, right? Like, you know, Fortnite was a basic zombie tower defense game, and it was okay.
Well, and let's remember, if I firmly believe that if Fortnite didn't do this battle royale mod, it would be dead right now.
I agree with you.
And maybe I'm
I agree
talking out
with
of
you, and I
turn,
actually
but
liked it. So,
okay,
but yeah.
yeah.
I actually, I from a like, and again, full disclosure, I haven't played a lot of PUBG. I just recently got it working on my computer because it's just not a very well optimized game. From a visual standpoint, I prefer kind of the cartoony aesthetic of Fortnite. That's just me, but at the same time, most people who play PUBG tell me that it plays better. There are more options for game. There are vehicles. The maps are. Zach, you told me, because you played Fortnite with me, you told me that the maps are much larger in PUBG, right?
Yeah, I would say PUBG's map is probably 3 to 4 times larger.
Oh, Jesus.
It's huge. And the new map is even a little, maybe a little bit bigger. There's more land mass anyway. Yeah, they play quite differently. But to kind of get at your larger question, which do you think games will mimic this? I think yes. But I think that for some of these established franchises like Call of Duty or Battlefield, we will see them have to, and even Destiny, we'll have to see them make these sort of copycat things less blatant than something like Fortnite. Just because Call of Duty's map sizes don't really lend to a battle royale mod. Battlefield kind of does with their conquest size maps. I don't think we're going to see Destiny do it just because they've got bigger maps. I guess they kind of have their raid area, or not their raid area, their patrol areas. I think we'll see a lot of copycats, and I think we'll kind of see what we saw after Modern Warfare 2007, where everyone's going to copy that formula. Some will stick, some won't.
Are you guys?
I think.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you'll see some copycats, but I don't think you're going to see as many copycats as people imagine. Like, not every major developer is immediately going to rush after this.
Nope.
And of those that do, you're only going to see a couple that see success. Like, just hypothetically, if it were to happen, I don't think it will, but if the next Halo 6 or whatever, implemented some sort of battle royale thing, they would have to give it their own spin for it to be successful.
I feel like the server costs will have to be higher too, since you're trying to support 100 players on one game.
Oh, that's a really good point, Jay. So here's my thing, right? And I believe I'd actually mentioned this to I think Zach in a DM. I look at PUBG, like I agree with you guys. I think there are going to be other games that try to ape PUBG's battle royale success, and I'm talking about, like, I'm talking established franchises, not new games. But I look at the battle royale space now, It's weird to be saying that because it's almost basically its own genre now, right?
Yeah.
But I look at the battle royale space as like the early days of World of Warcraft, where there was no breaking that fucking glass ceiling, right? Like that was
Right.
World of Warcraft circa 2000 and I don't know, 2005 to 2010, right? Like there was no busting through that. Other games tried, like Lord of the Rings Online, Star Wars Galaxies, but nothing was able to mimic the success of World of Warcraft. And every single MMO that came out during that period was it's the WoW killer, it's the World of Warcraft killer, and none of it panned out. I look at that, and it makes me think of the situation with PUBG and the battle, and the whole battle royale landscape, simply because I don't think that particular style of game can sustain more than one or two.
Well, it's not just that, but sorry, go ahead.
No. You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, even more recently than that, and that is a good example, John, but even more recently than that, look at the MOBA rush. So many developers and publishers tried getting on the MOBA scene after the success of things like League of Legends. Look at what's happened there. You've got League of Legends, Dota 2, and maybe sort of what Blizzard does, that they're kind of successful. That's only because they're Blizzard.
Yep.
That's it.
Hey, Finn, is that you?
Yeah, I think it's
sure
static.
is.
Hey, Finn, can you? We can hear you driving.
Oh, let me mute it.
But we're happy to have you here. So unmute and want to chat.
Get home so you can actually talk to us.
But yeah, so and I think this is maybe kind of a cliche in the gaming industry because we've heard Battlefield 3 wanted to be the Call of Duty killer and it failed. Obviously, I mean both coexist now and they both do well, but they kind of can't share the same space. I think the only thing that can kill PUBG at this point is Bluehole.
Yeah.
And I think we see this sometimes with multiplayer games where if Bluehole can make the community happy while still expanding what's already there to keep players coming back, the game will thrive. But like we saw with the Culling this week where they announced their Battle Royale style game is closing down 6 months after it came to Xbox, just like game preview earlier in the fall. If you don't listen to your community, your game will fail. And I can't see anything stopping PUBG's 30 million sales now.
So that's my next question before we move on to our next 2017 topic is what does Bluehole have to do to keep the game fresh for players? Because I get that it's a fun game, but just like Fortnite holds my attention for about an hour and I'm having a good time, and then I'm like, okay, I want to go do something else. I don't have that metaphysical hand, dragging my collar over to play a battle royale game right now, because when I play it, I know what's going to happen. There's one style, there's one game mode, and that's fine for some people. It's not okay for people like me. But then again, I'm a big RPG guy, so take that for what you will. But I want to ask you guys, what does Bluehole have to do in order to keep the game fresh for its audience? Because I do think there is a danger of the game stagnating. If at this point next year they've still got battle royale mode with 100 people and that's it, right? So what do they do? What options does Bluehole have?
As of right now, I think for the immediate future, they keep doing what they've been doing, which is lightning quick updates. Like they have been putting out updates, at least on the Xbox version, faster than I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think so, 3 patches so far in 2 weeks.
3 patches already. A 4th one is in certification. I mean, they're on top of that thing. I think Microsoft is letting them skip certification a little bit quicker because they know how important it is. At least that's just my theory. I have no proof. But they need to implement new modes, new maps, new weapons, and they can trickle that down. It doesn't have to be a huge rush of content, just a little bit like, oh, here's a new vehicle. Oh, here's a couple of new guns. Oh, here's a new map. Oh, here's a 20v20 mode where each team starts out with 5 tanks. Just something crazy like that, just to keep the lifeblood pumping, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I think they have the groundwork there, right? Like on PC, people who I think the only influencers have them now, but you could hold private matches. Maybe actually now that it's 1.0, maybe everybody can do it. But they used to have private matches for zombie modes, which are already built in. The game supports it. Things like that will help keep that game going. I think console is going to be harder to maintain just because console games don't last as long as PC. But I mean, as long as Microsoft is breathing down Bluehole's necks, I think that the game should do okay on console. But new maps are going to be crucial, and also just fixing the bugs. Vehicle physics, even in 1.0 on PC, are wonky as hell. This game is better than it's ever been, obviously, in 1.0, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done to keep that game going.
I can see PUBG developing a competitive scene next year.
Interesting. So we talk about like an esport?
Like that's how it's going to sustain itself. I mean, we talk about only have a 1 map or 2 maps or whatever, but like Dota 2 only has like 1 map or 2 maps. But I mean, it's survived because of the competitive scene.
I think, honestly, I think by this time next year, I think before this, way before this time next year, we will know which way the winds are blowing in regards to PUBG.
Yeah.
I think the writing's going to be on the wall by next spring or summer.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like people like what it presents right now. I mean, I know, John, you said like you get into the game, you're like, oh, I kind of know what I can like expect from like the hour of playing PUBG.
Yeah.
But like a lot of people get in there, and like each match for them is like a totally different experience. It's like what you experience like in a single player game. That's what they experience in one match because anything can fucking happen.
Well,
and
exactly. Well, and I think that this game, this is the perfect mass market game, which I think it was super smart for Microsoft to lock this down the way they did. At least, like I do believe that it's coming to PS4 eventually. I don't think anybody's going to disagree with that. But I think it was smart of Microsoft to lock this down temporarily the way they did. Even though I'm not a huge fan of third-party exclusivity, from a business standpoint, it's a good move because, like Jay just said, right? Like, you know, a casual gamer can jump in there for an hour and feel full. You know, you can get in there, do your thing for an hour, hour and a half, even 2 hours, and you can be fine. And for some people, like for some casual gamers, they'll do that once or twice a week, and they'll play a little bit of Madden, and that's it. And that's fine. As you know, as long as people are staying engaged with the game, that's all that's necessary, right? But this game has a lot of mass market appeal, I think, because of its overly simplistic nature. Like it's not a complex game. You jump in there and there's 100 people trying to kill each other and go.
Exactly.
Try to get a chicken dinner,
right?
You know,
exactly.
And I think that's what's we have to stop me because I love talking about PUBG. But I think that's what I love about the game is I can come home from being out of town for a week, sit down, and then get into the come in second place, my first match of the week, right? I think that's a great feeling, but it's also wonderful to play PUBG with friends. And just that communication in that game almost fills the void that Battlefield used to give me all those years ago. I just love how PUBG is as casual or hardcore as you make it, and I think that's why we've seen the success that it's had so far.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how PUBG progresses over the next 6 months. I'd say. You know, I want to move on to some other 2017 topics. I think that 2017 has been a fascinating year because this has not just been a year for breakout games like PUBG, but it has also been a year of reinvention and innovation, in my opinion. And when I'm talking about reinvention, I'm talking about games like, and this is my example, and anybody can bring up their own example if they want. But my example of completely reinventing how we look at a particular series is Resident Evil 7.
Yes.
That game, I'm a huge Resident Evil fan, and Resident Evil 6 was a massive disappointment for me. So, you know, I wanted to return to that pulpy horror that Resident Evil pioneered way back on PlayStation and started to move away from with Resident Evil 4 and then 5. And then, of course, we all know how 6 turned out. But Resident Evil 7 took that series and turned it on its head by moving it into a first-person perspective, bringing back that, you know, 1 or 2 enemies at a time, lumbering monstrosities coming at you. You know, Ethan Winters is not a trained soldier. He's not Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine. He's just a guy with a gun. And I felt like that game redefined what Resident Evil is. And I'm at the point now where I don't want the series, at least the mainline series, not talking about the Revelation stuff. I don't want Resident Evil to go back to a third-person viewpoint. I want it to stay first person. I was more immersed in Resident Evil 7 than I have been in any Resident Evil game since the very first one, dating back to the PlayStation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm just going to say, I've heard you say this before, John. I honestly believe as well. I think Resident Evil 7 is the best of the series.
I agree. Yep.
I honestly believe it is. It's my 3rd favorite game overall as of right now in 2017. It was very close to being my game of the year. It was in the running. The pacing is perfect. The little secrets, that game is infinitely replayable. It really doesn't overstay its welcome. It's got very, very few flaws. It somehow manages the cheesy humor and the, like you said, the pulpy nature that it really needed to have alongside the, oh God, this is horrific, I'm screaming horror.
Yep.
It works so incredibly
I
well.
love the little I love the little horror references, like when you're fighting Jack Baker with his big scissor bladed chainsaw. It's so fucking ridiculous. And then when he pulls it out,
it works.
It works. And then like the little call outs to other B movie or B horror franchises, like Evil Dead and Army of Darkness, when he pulls the the chainsaw blades out and he says groovy. And I was like, I fucking love that reference to Army of Darkness and Evil Dead. I love that Ash Campbell reference. I'm sorry, Ash Williams reference. And I don't know, like I when Resident Evil 7 came out, I played through it 5 times in 2 weeks to get the platinum trophy. I was so engrossed in it, and I was speed running it, and I was just what a wonderful and that is one of those games, much like the original Resident Evil, that I will return to year after year after year.
Oh yeah, I can easily see myself playing it once or twice a year from now on.
Yes, absolutely. I love it that much. It is a better game than Resident Evil 4.
And not only that, but I'll say this, just if I can sort of wrap up my opinion of Resident Evil talk there. I'm going to be honest, that series had gotten really long in the tooth. And
yes,
it proves something that if a series has gotten that long in the tooth, if it's been going on for that many numbered entries, and not to mention, like you said, the Revelations, spin-offs, and all that, which they're doing their own thing, and that's fine. Whatever.
I'm sorry, Sam. Revelatons.
Sorry.
Revelatons.
Yeah,
please get it right.
Revelatons. But the mainline series, it had to change. They had to completely reinvent it. They had to completely change up what they were doing, or there really wasn't a point. No one wanted another standard, somewhat scary action third-person game.
So here's my question to the group then. That series, or not that series, but that game's storyline is completely closed out in the Not a Hero DLC with Chris Redfield, right? Like the chapter of Resident Evil 7 is definitively brought to a close. So where does the series go from here, right? Like, I hope it sticks with the first-person perspective, and I think it probably will. But my question is do we go to another protagonist, or do you guys want to play as a series regular like Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine or Leon Kennedy or something? Or do you guys want something new?
I would love to see them stick with the small-time Ethan character. I mean, not Ethan per se, but a character of his caliber. I liked Not a Hero, but it definitively was almost too, like, I like the amount of action it was for the hour and a half that it took to beat it. I don't know if I want to play 10 hours of it.
I agree.
And so I would love for them to keep sticking to these, as much as the series is passing now, almost a Paranormal Activity setup where different protagonists, different setting, but kind of same formula. And so, like, I love the idea of it being a fucked up family somewhere in the world.
And I love that. I love that Texas Chainsaw vibe it had going on.
Oh yeah, yeah, and it's such a shame, right? Because like the Louisiana Bayou setting for that game was just phenomenal. But I think I would be sick of it. Like, I don't know if I would like to face Jack Baker in a second game. Like, I have no interest in doing that.
I feel like that family, their story is done, right?
But like family, but the setting, that type of game isn't. Like,
yes,
you have another hapless nobody stranded in, let me just throw this out there, the Alaskan wilderness where there's snow and ice and wolves everywhere, and you're scavenging for bullets, you're trying to stay warm. Can you imagine that?
Oh, that would that or oh God, I really like that idea actually, man.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Or just as much as it's a trope at this point, stranded at some rich asshole's mansion, and there's just just anything. I just want to be trapped in that house, because I think that house and also the game's incredibly tight field of view is kind of what lent itself to the claustrophobia that some of the earlier installments are kind of associated with its fixed camera angles.
But I really like what Sam is on. Like, imagine Resident Evil, but in the long dark.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Like that would be phenomenal, right? But I will say this: does anybody else want more Joe Baker? Joe is fucking awesome.
Yeah, like I want to know. Oh, well, we probably shouldn't get disclosures because that DLC just came out 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
But just for those who don't know, Joe Baker is a character introduced in the latest DLC. End of Zoe, it's $15 on all the places you can buy Resident Evil 7. It's 2 hours long. It's pretty good. It is a relative of the Baker family, and it's worth playing. But yeah, he's a really interesting character they introduced for the first time in this DLC. And it'd be awesome to see some backstory stuff, some prequel stuff.
I just want to point out, Infamous in chat asks, "Is this podcast coming to Switch?" Please do not port beg here. Infamous, there is no port begging here. Jay, have you played Resident Evil 7? Refresh my recollection, my man.
I've played like the first hour of it.
Okay, dude, you need to get on that.
Were you
It's icky dinner.
I really didn't like it all that much. I had to like I couldn't play unless like someone else was in the room with me, and it's really hard to keep my girlfriend in the room with me. So I didn't.
That's understandable.
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to make sure. I wanted to make sure that you didn't.
Yeah.
You didn't have an opinion that we were glossing over, man.
I mean, people really like it, so if they want to stick with it, then they can stick with it. I like the campiness of like Resident Evil 6 personally. Like
you and John Muncher should go have lunch, my man.
Like I really liked Operation Raccoon City.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, like what Jay's saying is, I mean, if Capcom is looking at pure sales, they might pivot to what Jay is talking about, this more campy setting, because Resident Evil 7, despite critical acclaim,
they issued a statement about that a while back.
So
Okay.
what I took away from sales of Resident Evil 7 is that it was a profitable game. It's more an issue of Capcom grossly overstating what that game was going to do, or grossly overestimating what that game was capable of.
Well, and undersold 6, but 6 was a stinker, so you've hurt your fan base.
Exactly, and
Exactly.
yeah, I think a lot of that were people who had sworn off the franchise and said, okay, I'm done.
A lot of people were burned on the, again, very long in the tooth franchise that weren't actually sure it was going to get the, I mean, not facelift, complete reconstruction surgery that it desperately needed.
And guys, you know what? If we're talking about innovation and reimagining of things in 2007, we are glossing over probably the biggest innovation of the year in the Nintendo Switch.
The 2017, not 2007.
Oh, Jay.
He's so old.
Don't be talking to shit about my Switch, man. So this year, and I love it. And we actually got, you know what? We got 2 major console releases this year. We got the Nintendo Switch and we got the Xbox One X. So let's talk about those. And you know what? Let's talk about, you guys want to talk about the X first? Because I feel like that's an easier conversation to have.
Sure, absolutely.
So what was it? November 14th, the Xbox One X?
November 7th.
November 7th. Okay.
Came out.
Okay. The second of the mid-generation refreshes, or the apology consoles, as I like to call them, sold a lot better than I think most people, including myself, expected. Where does Microsoft go from here now that they have the power crown back on their head?
They have the power crowns of. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I don't see this moving the needle in any meaningful way. I don't think it's going to help them catch up to the PlayStation 4 in the US. It's not going to help them catch up worldwide. I think the US is more of a toss-up. But I do think that these are steps that Microsoft needed to take. I think that they're making very smart moves, like bundling PUBG. I don't care what you say about, it's an early access game. It was a smart move bundling that.
Exactly.
With Xbox One X.
Exactly.
That was a very, very intelligent move for them to make. I still am not convinced. Like, I predicted that the Xbox One X would sell better to the Xbox Core than the PS4 Pro did to the PS4 Core, and I was right. For now, anyway. But I still don't think that power is necessarily what the masses are looking for. I mean, look at sales of the Switch. But I wanted to get your guys, and I want to start with Jay this time. I want to know what Microsoft has to do to carry that momentum into 2018 with
They
just
need some
power. on their side.
exclusives. That's all there is to it.
I was hoping you would say that.
They need exclusives, like game publications, and like they're like the best Xbox game of the year was Cuphead. But Cuphead can run literally any tablet. Like I have students like that in classes I sub for in high school. They can play Cuphead on their tablets. They get issued out. so they don't need to buy an Xbox for that.
So what? Yeah, you can get that. You can play that on any tablet, or it's on
like
Steam,
you don't,
right?
you don't need to own an Xbox to play that. You can buy it on Steam. You can buy it on good old games.
So
And everyone's announced the best exclusive of the year, and that's just a $20 title that you can buy anywhere else. Like the only other major like exclusive they had Gears 4 was the Motorsport 7, which was panned when it came out because it's loot box system and like Super Lucky's Tale and a
And
remastered
Halo
Zoo
Wars 2.
Tycoon.
I will not stop screaming the defense of Halo Wars 2, but it doesn't change as good a game as I thought it was. Your point overall. Doesn't change your point.
Halo Wars 2, like it came out so early in the year, and like we see like the Ultimate Edition being sold for like $10 now. It just bombed, and the marketing for it was really lackluster.
Yep. And I think
what shows that Microsoft doesn't have any confidence in its exclusives.
Yeah, I totally agree. And Jay, just really quick, I want you to unpack that. When you talk about Microsoft needing more exclusives, which is something I agree with, do you mean literally this doesn't come to Windows 10, or do you mean Master Chief style, or do you mean Xbox Play Anywhere style?
I mean, every exclusive at this point is probably Play Anywhere, but like it needs to be able to like run like on the gaming rig, not like just a tablet.
Just not coming to Steam. Just not coming to Steam.
Yeah, not coming to Steam either. I mean, like Quantum Break took a little while to come to Steam.
I think that should be sale, man.
I agree.
It's just like when your most like critically acclaimed exclusive of the year is a game that can be run like on literally any laptop. You probably have an issue there because you're not really selling the console at that point, because it's like I could spend the $200 or the $500 on the console, or I can just spend the $20 and buy it on my laptop and play it.
So, and I hear what you're saying, and I've got a zesty take.
Oh shit! Get your fucking vinegar out.
I don't. First of all, I hear what you're saying. I think there's merit to what you're saying, but I think that Microsoft doesn't care. I think that Microsoft
and they don't care.
Yeah, I think that's going to hurt the sales of their console. I think it's undisputed that the X primarily exists for existing customers. I'm sure there are people who are on PS4 all gen who will come to X. I'm sure that exists, but I think it predominantly caters to the base. But that's beside the point. I think Xbox doesn't care about selling you their consoles anymore. No. They care about you buying games into their ecosystem, buying Xbox Live, and frequently coming back to their platform, whether that be on your tablet through the Windows 10 store, on your computer, engaging with their audience on Steam, which is now something they're just starting to do, or playing on Xbox. I think that Microsoft will continue to move towards being a service company rather than a console seller. And I think that's fine. Like John mentioned, I don't think this is going to help I don't think the X is going to help move the Xbox closer to PlayStation and overall sales.
I don't think it needs to.
No, I totally agree. I don't think they need to.
The X caters to one thing, and it does it extremely well. Basically.
Right. And I don't think Microsoft's success this generation does not necessarily need to be determined on how well it did compared to PS4.
I mean, you also have to look at both companies just overall. Like Microsoft is in much better shape than Sony is as an overall company.
Sure.
Like to them, the Xbox is just another division. They can just kind of throw money out or not throw money out and just see what happens.
Right.
Whereas with Sony, the only division, did you guys know the only division at Sony that makes more money than the PS4 is their insurance division?
Yeah.
Right.
Like Sony's literally live or die on the PlayStation. Like if they see it's like PlayStation production like tomorrow, like they would go under.
Which to be honest, if you have a division that you need to live or die on, PlayStation 4 ain't a bad division to do that on, because that motherfucker is
it's
something else. Well. Like holy shit.
No, exactly. But like what I'm trying to say is that like Sony has to invest into exclusives. They have to invest into products to sell their product, while Microsoft doesn't have to do that.
Right. And that's the thing, right? Like, I think that we will continue to see, especially around the time of Quantum Break's original launch, we saw a big pushback from some audience members who were unhappy to see Xbox Play Anywhere and cross-buy stuff. But I think that is the future that Microsoft wants. And so I think you're right. I think that we will continue to see Xbox have middling sales. I think that we will eventually see Switch pass it in lifetime sales. I think we will continue to see PlayStation 4 outsell it. But I don't think Microsoft cares, because they're still making a profit on that division. And so they're going to keep making some games. They're going to probably put more games like Halo onto PC over time. And I think I kind of hope that's what happens with the next Halo in 2018. To get kind of back on subject.
Here's the thing.
Honestly, if we ever do see another Xbox again, which I don't think, maybe we won't, I don't know, but I think it's gonna be more of like, like this like Steam machines or Alienwares, where it's kind of like just a like pre-built computer. It has like Microsoft Office on it and whatnot.
See, that's where I disagree. I don't think that's the case at all. I mean, I understand what you guys are saying, and they absolutely are moving more towards, people mock them for the whole monthly active users thing, but the thing is, they're absolutely right when it really comes down to it, when it comes to terms of engagement and things like that. But when you look at the fact that Phil Spencer has been promoted and he's right under Satya Nadella at this point, and the fact that all the games coming to Steam are from studios that they don't own, like they don't own Studio MDHR, they don't own Remedy, obviously, so they have no control over that. I don't think it's going to be as drastic a change as people think it'll be. Like, will the next Halo come to Windows 10? Sure. But it's not touching Steam. And it never will. Gears of War isn't touching Steam. I don't know. It's kind of hard to predict, but you're going to see another console from them. They're in a bit of a difficult position because they are now trying to build up their studios. They're now trying to invest in things that would have paid off a long time ago, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
So speaking of things that are paying off, let's segue into the Nintendo Switch. It's probably the most incredible turnaround that we've seen for a console or a company in recent memory. So I'm going to cite this article here from Rolling Stone, right? So as of right now, the Nintendo Switch, which launched on March 3rd, I believe. Am I botting?
You are.
Yeah, you're botting really bad.
Hard.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to drop out real quick, and I'm going to come right back.
Okay. So does anybody else want to jump in and talk about their first of all, 2017 Switch and then 2018 Switch? What you're hoping to see going forward?
I don't own a Nintendo Switch. I actually
Okay.
played one for the first time at a Target 2 weeks ago. I played Breath of the Wild. I thought this was okay, and I saw two parents fight it out for a Switch box because they were stocking them. So it's the hot toy right now.
Is that better, guys?
Yes, you're good now.
And I think it's going to be the hot toy. It keeps up the push that they gave it this year, which I think will be very hard to match.
Yeah.
Hey, Mitty in chat says audio is taking a hit for her. Our friends in chat, are we coming through? Are we coming through okay for you guys? I just want to make sure.
Referencing you kind of botting a little bit a minute.
Yeah, I think that's what they're referencing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. I just want to. I just happened to glance over chat. Okay, so a Nintendo Switch. So as of right now, the damn thing has sold over 10 million units. It is easily going to outpace the Wii U's lifetime sales by next spring, probably before that.
Sure.
Which fucking blows my mind. What a turnaround. I'm hearing like a hissing in my ear. Are you guys getting that?
No.
Hold on. Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I'll learn to live with it. There it goes. It's gone. Sweet. Okay. It was really fucking driving me crazy. So this article from Rolling Stone, Nintendo is planning to produce between 25 million and 30 million Nintendo Switch units next fiscal year, according to a report by the Wall Street Journal, citing sources with direct knowledge in the matter. While we already knew the company planned to increase its production when the fiscal year starts next April, the degree it plans to boost production is a lot higher than originally expected. Wall Street Journal adds the company may increase these numbers depending on its performance the holiday season. The company has also increased its expectations for this fiscal year's sales. The Switch has currently sold nearly 10 million units since its launch on March 3rd. Late last month during an earnings call, Nintendo believed it could sell 14 million units this year. Now, according to the Wall Street Journal, the company thinks it could sell upwards of 17 million, which will help it easily outpace the Wii U, which released in the fall or holiday season of 2012. And then Nomura Securities in Japan says the console will sell 115.8 million units by March 2023. Okay, so let's kind of pick this apart. I have a Switch, and I can tell you right now, with absolutely no hesitation whatsoever, it has very easily overtaken the PlayStation 4 for me as my favorite console this generation. Period.
I didn't know you owned a Switch.
What's that?
I did not know that you owned a Switch.
You didn't know? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not obvious that I own a Switch or anything. What's that behind me? But the Switch is. There is really something to be said and I know this is what everybody goes back to, but I mean, the novelty for me is still not worn off of playing a console quality Legend of Zelda, taking it out of the dock, going upstairs, playing it on the couch, taking it to bed, playing it in bed, and then the next day taking it back downstairs and picking up right where I left off. That novelty still has not worn off for me. I got a Switch for my son for Christmas. I mean, Santa got him a Switch for Christmas. Hopefully, he doesn't listen to this anyway. But he dropped what he was doing and grabbed his Switch, and that was literally all he paid attention to. And my concerns when the thing launched about what its lineup would look like by the end of the year have completely evaporated. I mean, what a year for Nintendo with games like Breath of the Wild and Super Mario Odyssey. I mean, we got a fucking mainline Zelda and a mainline Mario in the same year on a launch year for a Nintendo console. You've got games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Splatoon 2, Mario plus Rabbids Battle Kingdom, which, by the way, is one of the most pleasant surprises of the entire year for me. And a plethora of amazing little indie games and ports of great games from other systems. I mean, the Switch, in my opinion, has had the most surprising and successful year out of all three consoles, purely from just a pure joy and enjoyment standpoint. And I know that a few you guys, Zach, you own a Switch.
I do.
I don't. Jay and Sam, do you guys own Switches, bitches?
No, I was actually just telling a funny Switch story when you dropped out.
Yep.
Oh, please. Well, and by all means, continue.
Okay, so I'm gonna restart it. So
Okay,
I was
please.
in Target about 2-3 weeks ago, and they had a Switch to play. So I'm like, okay, I'll test this out. I played Breath for a while. I'm like, this is okay. It's like cool. It's like whatever. They had no Switches in stock, and all these parents were like, where the fuck are the Switches? Like they're fighting over the Switches. And this employee comes out with a bunch of Switches, like stock up, and like they're all just fighting over the Switches. And I think that to me just tells you that's like a success story right there.
Yeah, I mean, if you
I just haven't seen parents go crazy over a console like this in a while.
Since the Wii.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Since the Wii, probably. And I mean, the way Nintendo is turning around, and let's face it, the Switch has some hurdles to overcome. Like, there's no virtual console, which I think is a huge issue for me.
I don't think it's coming at this point.
I would actually agree with you, simply because of the Super Nintendo Classic sitting right over there.
Yep.
In my little room down there.
No reason to stop what's working, which honestly, I think that may eventually bite them in the butt, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
I think it's possible. I know that Switch owners and people who love the console like myself are getting massively frustrated because I would rather play these Super Nintendo games anywhere on my Switch as opposed to having to come down to my basement and play them on my television.
For them, it's easy money because they're just like reusing like leftover 3DS parts to make.
It's easy money. Well, not only that, I mean, it's just an emulator in a fucking box. It's a Raspberry Pi box. That's what this is.
Yeah, I actually similarly, just because I wanted to be a little bit prepared, I wrote down some disappointments of 2017, and I wrote Switch Virtual Console as one of them. And I get it, right? Obviously, I think the Super NES did so well that it made the NPD, right? It almost did,
yeah,
right. And so like I get it, right? They're not gonna go back. They're not gonna do Virtual Console, or at least they're not gonna invest in it as heavily as they did in the past on the Wii U, which is devastating to me as somebody who can never get my hands on the fucking things. I think it's a mistake, and I also think another thing that Switch needs to improve next year is their online services. They've again delayed their rollout, which is fine with me. I'm not super eager to pay a lot of money for another subscription service to online, but the infrastructure they've got running is better than what we've seen from Nintendo previously.
That's a low fucking bar.
That's a low.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is so miles below PlayStation and even further from Xbox's online infrastructure. It's bad. to say the least, to play online with friends right now on Switch compared to other platforms.
So, like, my friends and I would try to play Splatoon 2 and to get over the lack of voice chat, because I'm not using that fucking app. We would just get on Discord, right? But unless you have 4 people, it will throw you onto different teams. So it's like, what's the fucking point? Like, I can't. I mean, come on, guys. And Nintendo, Nintendo's gonna Nintendo, and it feels like every time they have a massive home run like the Switch, and I do think the Switch is a massive home run.
Oh yeah,
I want everything to be on the Switch, because I want to play everything on my Switch. It's just a fun console to use. At the same time, it seems like they are determined to just piss you off about it, right? Like, I guarantee, so the Virtual Console, I think you're going to get something, like they've mentioned, a Netflix style service, which, okay, whatever. As long as it's got some, as long as it's got some classic games on it that I can play on my Switch, fine, I guess. I have squared myself with the fact that I'm not going to get the Virtual Console on the Switch the way I want it, because those mini consoles are just making too much fucking money. So please look forward to the N64 Mini and the GameCube Mini, because they're coming.
Yep.
Having said that, I think Nintendo is primed for a really strong 2018. On the, I mean, if you're just looking purely at games, I mean, you've got a lot of games coming out that I am very excited about. You've got, Kirby coming out early. Yoshi, there's a new Yoshi game coming out. I guarantee you Smash Brothers is coming next year. I guarantee it. There's no way that game doesn't come next year. Hopefully for Jeff, I know for Jeff, I am 100% certain we're going to get an Animal Crossing of some kind on the Switch next year. I'm confident that Pokemon will probably come out, which is going to be fucking massive, because that is the first Pokemon game on an actual home console. The first mainline Pokemon game. And I am pretty confident that Metroid Prime 4 is going to hit next winter. I think that's going to be their big winter game.
I actually don't think Animal Crossing is coming until 2019.
Really? Why is that, Jay?
Because they still got to roll out their online. And I feel like Smash Brothers is the perfect opportunity to roll out their online and see if it works or not.
When do you think? Well, when do you think Smash Brothers hits next year? What's your window for that?
Probably summertime.
That's a good. Ooh, that would be a
good summer game.
Yeah, that would be a great summer game.
They can roll out their online with that. People will pay to play online Smash Brothers.
I think so apparently there's a direct that's happening in January.
Yeah.
I think you're going to learn more about Smash Brothers. I think you're going to see Smash Brothers at that direct. I would love to get. Go ahead.
Can I talk about the online really quick on the Switch?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I don't own a Switch, but just from everyone's comments about the Switch, two of the biggest Nintendo titles on the Switch was Splatoon 2 and ARMS. You guys remember ARMS? The game where you can fight with your arms?
Yeah, the game I played for like a week, and I was like,
yeah, well, both of those games are primarily online games, and both of them are basically dead at this point.
Yep.
Well, hold on. What's the other online game that's dead?
2.
Oh no, dude, Splatoon 2 is not dead.
Comparatively, compared to the other games, it's the community is not as big as it was.
The first one was still popping around this time when it came out.
It's still popping for me, man. I still play it, and I get put in matches immediately. That game is fucking massive in Japan. Yeah,
well, I know that ARMS is dead.
ARMS is dead. ARMS is dead. Splatoon 2 is far from dead. Splatoon 2 is going strong, but you're right about ARMS. ARMS is a fucking corpse. And I knew that was going to happen too. I knew that was going to happen. Like it's a fun game, but I mean, and I loved the demo. But when I picked it up and I started playing it, I was like, "There's no way this is going to hold my interest for long." There's no way.
But Jay's point still remains, despite the potential success of ARMS and Splatoon 2, the online infrastructure that supports playing with friends in Splatoon 2 is still dog shit.
It is absolutely. It's garbage.
Yeah, and like that's the bigger point. That's still shockingly bad. I mean it.
That core gameplay hook is so good though.
Sure, no, and that's what I find so frustrating about discussion around Nintendo and discussion around Switch is we are so willing to praise them because they do so many things well, and I think it's good to praise people and companies when they do well by us. But there are some core things missing from Switch.
Right.
And I think online infrastructure, online stability, and an ecosystem that feels permanent are severely lacking on that platform.
Well,
and I don't.
You just hit the. Sorry, John, you go first, please.
No. Sam, you first.
I was just going to say, when you said an ecosystem that feels permanent, that right there, you hit the nail on the head for my biggest issue with Nintendo. That's my biggest issue right there, is the idea that they expect you to rebuy games console after console, even if it's older, these new, the SNES Mini, the NES Mini. It's like, say what you want from Microsoft's new game output, but I can load up Fusion Frenzy and Knights of the Old Republic on my Xbox.
The fact that there's no backwards compatibility on the PS4 is fucking, don't even get me started.
And don't get me started on PS Now and all that. I can boot up 360 games, and the servers for Gears of War 3 are still popping. And in that respect, in terms of a permanent ecosystem, Nintendo really does need to get their stuff together. Because it's not important right now, but further down the line, it's going to become more and more important.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy about all this is that the Switch is killing it despite all of that. So imagine if all these things were there. Like imagine. I do think I think these things will come with time. But honestly, at this point, and so this is my closing question on the Switch for you guys. Like, I was waiting when this thing launched. It launched big, and I was waiting for it to be a fluke. But I think at this point, in my opinion, I think at this point, like, the Switch is the real deal. Like, Nintendo's back. It's not a flash in the pan. It's not now sales are going to drop off the cliff. I think this thing is going to continue building momentum into 2018. And I think I think you can expect to see Switch bouncing back and forth with PS4 in regards to taking that NPD every month. I mean, as long as everything is selling, I don't give a shit what wins. But I'm just amazed at the way Nintendo was able to turn this around.
I think they'll be popping for 2018. I'm not so sure about 2019 and beyond, because I'm not saying they can't.
On games. That's going to be wholly dependent.
Exactly. It'll depend on how many third-party publishers. Like, all props to Bethesda and God Howard. Bethesda has charged in with their third-party support in an amazing fashion.
Really
They've got Wolfenstein 2 coming next year. It's crazy.
The fact that Doom even runs on a Switch, like, I don't care if it's muddy looking and 30 frames a second, it runs, and that's what right there. That is the real Christmas miracle.
But I do think that type of, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I think I'm building on what you're saying is, one of the things that I think will matter in 2019 is we could potentially start hearing some rumblings about what Sony and Microsoft are doing next.
Exactly.
And I think that, like John's saying, I just got Doom last week on the Switch. I've played it for probably 3 hours. I'm having a hard time playing it, considering I've played it on Xbox, where it looks significantly better and runs with twice the frame rate. But that's beside the point. It's mobile, it's fun, and that's cool. But we have put up with Nintendo being behind in graphics forever. It's kind of their MO. But if we compare some of the best-looking PlayStation 4 Pro and Xbox One X games to Switch, it's hard. It's a hard comparison. And I think with 2019, if we see a new Microsoft console or new Sony console, or even just rumors of one, that will scare off developers. I will be anxious to see how Panic Button ports Wolfenstein 2. That game struggled on Xbox One's base model, and I think we will see, without severe cuts, that game will struggle even harder than Doom.
Oh, you're looking at a 30 frames a second game.
You're looking undoubtedly.
It's going to be an accomplishment that thing runs. The fact that it run on it without crashing will be the major accomplishment. I mean,
absolutely.
And that's the thing, right? Like, even the director of Final Fantasy 15 said, "Yeah, I love the Switch as a device, but this thing will never run on it.
No,
we literally cannot port it." And moving forward, again, not 2018, but 2019 and beyond, I feel like in terms of third parties, because Nintendo's first parties will make do with whatever. But third parties, that's going to be a tougher and tougher sell.
Yep.
Because it's going to go from ugly ports to, no, this game literally will not run.
Right. I think maybe it'll just be the port machine. Maybe it will get our 2014 games in 2018 on mobile, and we'll buy them again because we can play them mobile. Right? Like, you're telling me, like, I'm telling you right now, I would buy Fallout 3. I would buy Fallout New Vegas. I would buy Fallout 4 on a mobile platform. And I'll do that, but I just can't see the next, let's say it's Division 2.
No. But let's face it, right? Like people, including me, buy Nintendo consoles for Nintendo games, and
Sure.
I don't think anybody on this panel would argue that Nintendo probably has. Well, Jay might, but he's zesty. I don't think anybody would argue that Nintendo has the strongest first-party stable of the big three. Like, PlayStation's got their exclusives and Microsoft got but I mean, Nintendo's the house of Mario. And nobody beats Mario in terms of sheer, name recognition and appeal. And to your point about visuals, right? Like, and again, this is just my perspective. I like the Switch better than I like my PS4, and I love my PS4. But the games on, I look for fun. What's fun? Like, my most anticipated game of next year, believe it or not, is Project Octopath Traveler. I fucking hate that name, Square Enix. Please change that name before you release it. But if you have a Switch, go to the eShop as soon as you're done listening to this podcast and go download that demo and tell me that is not just a beautiful looking game. It's 16-bit, but in it looks like a pop-up book. And it's got a super dark storyline. It's like a really dark Final Fantasy, Super Nintendo Final Fantasy that looks gorgeous. And I am more excited about that.
I've seen some clips. I've done a little bit of looking. I would absolutely pick that up.
Good.
It's not if, it's a when. I will get a Switch one day or another sometime next year. I would absolutely pick up Project Octopath Traveler.
And is Zelda as breathtaking as, like, for visually as, like, Horizon Zero Dawn? No.
But it doesn't need to be.
But it doesn't need to be. I mean, I have never seen draw distance in a game like I see in Breath of the Wild. Like, you can, like, if you go to, I'm not shitting you. There are two of those divine beasts that are on opposite corners of the map, and if you go stand on one, you can see all the way across the map to that other one. And the size of the Breath of the Wild, that world, the size of Hyrule, is fucking vast. That is a vast, vast game world, and it's not just about the visuals. It's about the art direction and what's in the world. Breath of the Hyrule just feels alive. It feels lived in. It feels magical. And those are the experiences that I look for. And that's why I love the Switch, because it gives me, I can take experiences like Super Mario Odyssey, which is just an absolute joy to play. That game is like distilled joy. Games like Zelda, and I can take them wherever I go. And that, to me, I can play them wherever I want. And that, to me, and like it allows me to be able to play a console quality game in a room with my wife, and I can still be there with her. You know what I mean? Like that to me is priceless. Which is why I love my Switch, and I will continue to love my Switch until the fucking thing just doesn't work anymore. But I wanted to kind of step away from this line of talk, and I wanted to talk about something I think is going to be very interesting. That is some of our, and here's the thing: we could talk more about great things that happened in 2017, and we could be here for another 3 hours.
That's why next week's episode.
Exactly. So I wanted to save some of that for next week when we talk about our games of the year, which are going to be fucking zesty. I guarantee it for some people. And I want to talk about some of our biggest gaming disappointments, which I think is a fun topic for 2017. And I want to start off with Sam this time.
Okay.
So talk about some games that just completely failed you.
Okay.
Or first off, didn't even fail you, just underwhelmed you.
Yeah. Just not even that they weren't good games, but that they didn't do what I wanted them to.
Yeah.
First off, just a disclaimer statement. The games I'm going to talk about, I'm really struggling to come up with something because 2017 has been insane. There are Game of the Year candidates I haven't played. I won't get to play until 2018 or beyond. This year has been astounding. It's been a great time. Real disappointment for me would, it would have to be Outlast 2. That's probably the only real major letdown. Outlast 2, and I enjoyed the first Outlast. It has its problems, the setting, maybe the ending, depending on the way you look at some things, but I still enjoyed the first Outlast. Outlast 2 opens and it has an incredible setting with this mysterious cult that's been led off into the Arizona wilderness, and you don't really know what's going on. Is it supernatural? Is it not? Everything is creepy. They're obsessed with completely out of context or made up Bible quotes.
The first half of that game is so fucking scary.
Yeah, exactly. The first hour is pure distilled horror, and it works wonders. And then the game falls apart. And I'm going to try and do this spoiler-free, but I mean, I'm going to have to dip into spoilers for a couple of things. So, for starters, the first Outlast, because I replayed it recently, it works because you're constantly being guided towards one objective or another. It's very narrow. It's very linear. Outlast 2 is not. And while that's good to look at, it doesn't work with the gameplay. It throws you into these constant, frenetic chases where you're being... you got angry villagers that look all creepy, or a demonic 8-foot woman with a scythe chasing you.
Yeah.
And God help you if you don't find the perfect pixel to jump on. The perfect ledge that looks like 20 other ledges. And that wasn't the case in the first Outlast because there was only one ledge. There was only one window, and there weren't that many chases either. There's like 2 or 3 chases.
Well, you watched me stream a bunch of it before you played it.
Yes. Well, no, after. I had played it by that time.
Oh, okay,
yes.
okay. You'd already played it. And
but I've watched you, yes.
One thing I found that Outlast 2 borrowed from other games this year, and I feel like it worked to the game's detriment, was the environments were too open for that style of game.
They were much too open. They were much too open. It looks good. It's great to look at. It's nice if there's nothing chasing you, and that's it. Because trying to figure out... I mean, there are literally sections where all you can do is hope you're going the right way and pray you don't get cut down.
The cornfield. The cornfield,
yes, exactly.
Like, for the first 5 minutes, I was like, fuck, this is scary. And then I was like, just find me and kill me. Or
exactly.
Either that, or just show me the exit, because holy fuck.
And then there's the other half of the game that doesn't really work well. And I'm not even getting into the story. I just mean the gameplay and mechanics here. I'm not going to touch the story with a 39.5-foot pole. But there's a certain section of the game where you come across a village of rotting, hideous people. That's just the fact. They are literally falling apart. They're missing eyes, fingers, toes, pieces of their jaw. Some of them are missing legs or arms. Why on planet Earth can you not fight back? The first game, it made sense. You were fighting either these genetically enhanced, steroid muscle.
I know exactly what. There's a part, Sam. There's a part when you fall down a pit and one of these guys is crawling around on the ground. He's crawling around on the ground, and he'll follow you around the arena until you find a way out. And he's crawling, and every time he gets to you, he damages you. And I'm like, fucking step on his hand. Like, he's half a person. Like,
you do some amazing sprints and lifts, so this guy is clearly physically capable. I understand if it was like Martha or a couple of spoiler enemies towards the end that you don't want to fight back, but dude, these rotting people, just pick up a rock, pick up a stick, and beat the bejesus out of them. It
can barely move.
Exactly. It's video game logic in the worst way possible, and that's the worst part. Outlast 2 has a great setting. The story, you can take it or leave it, but the gameplay mechanics completely fall apart. So that's my major disappointment.
Well, and some of them will be hostile to you, and some won't. And the game gives you absolutely no indication as to there's no tells, there's no nothing. Like, one of these guys, I remember I was walking through that area, that encampment you were talking about, and one of them was huddled by a fire. He's like, ugh. And I walked by him, and he didn't do anything. And then there's another one right next to him sleeping, and he just swiped at me. And I'm like, oh, come on. Like
Exactly.
Like, I mean, Zach, you look like you want to speak up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to... I also like the first game, despite its many, many flaws. In the second game, I had some major qualms with it, as I mentioned before I went live. Because the game does a lot of its contextual storytelling through hidden notes and documents that you could find or miss entirely. And that's a problem to me, hugely, because I missed a lot of it. And so a lot of things didn't make any sense by the time I got to the end, and I had to go back and read online about what I missed to give some context. And the story they came up with wasn't bad, but it's so different from a game like BioShock, where you can find little recordings that will almost elevate the game world that the creators have made. But in Outlast 2, the story, if you literally don't find any documents and go all the way from point A to B, it just feels like a fever dream. There's no logic or reasoning. And like, that's fine, But like once you learn what the story is supposed to be, it's like, well, shit. Like it was so light from a gameplay perspective that I missed it. But what they try to tell you through these notes is actually kind of interesting. It kind of hints at a bigger picture, kind of hint at where the series might go in the future. But if you hide that in a note, I miss it.
Honestly, I'd be fine with them going in a different direction entirely and not continuing the series at this point, because I mean, you can only. I mean, I feel like this is a trope that wears itself out quickly.
Yep.
You know, kind of like I liken it to how everybody got tired of found footage horror movies
rapidly,
really fast. I'm kind of feeling the same thing with Outlast. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, like they've already said there will be a new project in the Outlast universe. Red Barrels has said that. I'm okay with that, but it needs to be radically different. It cannot be the same thing as the first two games.
Get rid of the camera. Get rid of the night vision. Do something else. Do something else. I just okay. Like I finished Outlast 2 and I felt like I finished Outlast 1 and I was like I had fucking heart palpitations by the end of that game. Right, like I was sweating, and I finished Outlast 2 and I felt nothing. I was like, okay.
It was just like yeah.
I beat a horror game. Okay, great. You know, and it was kind of like the end of the Truman Show where they're like, yeah, hey, what else is on? And that was my reaction to the end of Outlast 2. So I completely understand why that would be a disappointment for you. Go ahead, man, and then I want to move on to Jay.
Yeah, that was really the major one. The other one was the state that Mass Effect Andromeda came out in. I've talked that to death, but just to recap, the worst part is that underneath all those bugs and tired faces and crashes, there actually was a half-decent game. There actually was a decent Mass Effect game in spite of everything. And if you haven't read Jason Schreier's story on the development of Mass Effect Andromeda, you absolutely need to. It's fascinating. It goes from, well, good Lord, what crap is this, to, holy heck, how did this team even make a game? And I have respect for them for that. I'm really sorry. But at the same time, I have no respect for the fact that we're not getting the desperately needed Quarian Arc expansion, which we really needed.
Forget that, dude. We're not getting another Mass Effect. That series is dead.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, even if Mass Effect Andromeda was going to be the last one, at least we could have had some closure that way.
I want to disagree with Zach real quick. I think that series is fucking dead. I think it's deader than dead.
I think the EA CEO, so originally they were like, yeah, we're putting the series on ice, and then I think a month or two ago, the CEO was like, there's no reason to expect that there won't be some in the future. I think you're right that we won't see it it's probably done for this gen, but that's
and they said that for Dead Space as well.
That was exactly the example I was going to say, is that they said back in like 2012, you know, Dead Space 4, you know, you're churning away, you know, Dead Space 4 is going to happen. Yeah, right. It's 5 years later. Yeah, fuck you, Dead Space 4. And I feel like I think all of their assets are being thrown at Anthem at this point. Sure. I think everything is on Anthem, and considering that is going to be a game, basically a game as a service or MMO light, like Destiny 2.
Yeah, it's EA's Destiny.
Yeah, that is going to be the focus for BioWare for the long term, as long as it takes off. So I don't think we're getting another. I think Mass Effect is dead, and what a just a fucking depressing end for such a storied series. But I want to move on. I want to move on to Jay. Jay, tell me about a gaming disappointment or a letdown you had in 2017.
Okay, so I have 3. It's 2 games, and it's like one gaming moment, I guess.
Okay.
The first one is not really a big one, but I've always wanted to play it, and that's Okami HD.
Okay.
You know, Okami, the game with the god dog, and
Matarasu. Yeah, dude, I fucking love Okami.
Yeah, I thought it was boring. Like aesthetically, it's beautiful, but it's just boring.
Jay.
It's just like I don't know. Like I went into it because I was like, this looks really fun. Like I haven't played Zelda game in a very long time. Like I think I'm really gonna like this, and I just could not get into it. Thankfully, it's only $20 at release, so I didn't lose that much money.
That's understandable. I'm not gonna be mad.
But on a side note, Capcom's been doing a really amazing job with their remasters this year.
They really have, actually. Yep.
Like Dragon's Dogma on your PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, and Okami HD. And next year they're releasing Street Fighter 1, 2, like all the versions of 2 and 3
for the all of them.
So that's not a gaming disappointment. That's a gaming accomplishment. So,
but Yeah, go. Yeah, you said you had another one too.
Yeah, Nier Automata.
Ooh,
The new Nier
careful.
game.
The anime
We
avatars are coming after you.
No, I can. You know what, Jay? You and I can actually agree on this one.
So I absolutely love the first Nier game a whole lot. Like I like the fact that it wasn't like it went for like a different direction than those games normally do. Like he plays a dad and like he's looking for a cure for his daughter and blah blah blah. I was really grabbed by it, and like the newest one, like it didn't grab me at all, and the whole game just felt really bland. Like the quests weren't engaging, and the world wasn't really engaging.
Well, it doesn't look good. It's
It really it doesn't look good. Like I mean, I guess
all the menus, all the menus are gray and bland, and it runs at 60 frames a second. But I mean, Jay, correct me, like it looks like an Xbox 360 or a PS3 game.
Yeah, I know it does. I mean, aesthetically, like I dig it, but like I don't know, it wasn't fun to play. Like it wasn't pleasing to play. Like if I watched it, I would probably have a better time to play it. And like I don't know, like I never pre-ordered. Like I played the demo at a friend's house, and I'm like I'm gonna pre-order this. Like this is a blast. And then I played it, and like I just could not get into it. And like I know everyone says to like stick around for it because to play all the 28 endings in the game, but like
dude, I got 3 of the endings in the game, and I was like, I'm good enough. Like I'm good with that. I got through. I played through. For 3 endings, and admittedly, one of those endings is super quick. But I was good. Like I didn't hate it, but it was not the like. I read the reviews for this game, and I'm like, are we like? And people are just gushing over how life changing and forward thinking Nier Automata is, and I'm like, are we playing the same game? Like it's like you said, it's not any fun to play. I finished it. Because like it's weird. Like I thought I was having fun. Like I tried to convince myself that I was having fun with this game. Have you guys ever ever felt like you're doing that? Like I'm having fun. I'm having fun with this.
A couple of times, not very often, but a couple of times I have.
And eventually, I came to admit. I had to admit to myself that I'm not enjoying it. Like I'm forcing myself. I'm playing through this game because everybody tells me I'm supposed to like it. And I shouldn't do that.
Yeah,
I shouldn't do that to myself.
I couldn't get into it, which is a shame because it should be a game that was like made for me. Like developed for me. It's like this totally screams me, and I just couldn't get into it.
Oh, the map is so bad, Jay. Jay, the map is so bad. Can you talk about the map? That map is fucking trash.
I don't like that. Like okay, so I guess like for the theme of the game, you're playing as a robot. Like the map makes sense. Like it makes sense, but like it's just not. It's terrible.
It's just not a good map. Like I'm not a robot. I need to be able to make heads or tails of it.
It's terrible. Thankfully, the PlayStation 4 has some really good GRPGs or games of GRPG elements this year, such as Yakuza 0, which I absolutely love. I think everyone should play it, and Persona 5, and so I'm not like so heartbroken about Nier this year, to be honest.
I'm gonna be playing Persona 5 as soon as we're done here, actually.
Yeah, I just rebought it recently because I need to get back into it. And
go ahead. You had one more, right?
Yeah, so I don't want anyone to get mad at me, but I think one of my biggest game disappointments of the year is the consumer reaction to the Battlefront 2 loot boxes.
That's spicy. All right, unpack it. Unpack it.
Yeah. All right, let's hear it. I'm intrigued. Let's hear it.
I don't agree with the practice whatsoever. I don't agree with it, but I kind of see where EA was coming with it. Titanfall 2 had come out the previous year, and the biggest play of that game was there was really no progression system. In Battlefront 1, the biggest issue was there was no progression system. So EA kind of gave people like what they wanted. It's like, hey, if you play the game for so many hours, you can finally play the Star Fader, and they locked it behind loot boxes.
That was so fucking.
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it, but I think the consumer reaction to it was overboard. And I think it just goes to show that like some people take Star Wars way too seriously and games way too seriously. And now we're seeing that The Last Jedi as well. Like a lot of the fans like absolutely hate The Last Jedi. And they want like, Rotten Tomatoes to be taken down. Like I know there comes a point where like you can love a media product, whatever, but like product. It's not like your actual life, and you just need to calm down. Because the companies actually don't care about what you want.
Well, I mean, obviously EA does. I mean, they care enough to where they changed it. But
well, I mean, they had to change it because the reception had gotten so bad at that point that they had to pull a move to save themselves.
So, yeah. So this is a difficult one to unpack, right? Like, I don't agree with obviously, I don't agree with, like, let's just say threatening devs or saying, oh, you know, fuck you. Like, I don't agree with that at all. Like, that's bullshit. Okay. That's fucking garbage, and it's never okay. On the other hand, I understand consumer frustration with it, because I mean, that game literally had its progression locked behind a paywall. And I remember talking to people who I have not played. I own Battlefront 2 for my son. I have not played it yet. I know people who play, like my brother. My brother games just as much as I do, and he was playing Battlefront 2, and he said you could absolutely tell who has paid for progression and who has not. He said, and I was not expecting that. He says, but you can absolutely tell who has paid and paid and paid to advance quickly and who hasn't. He said it is blindingly obvious when you're playing multiplayer, and that's not cool. That's not because the game just fucking came out.
So,
and go ahead, Zach.
So I've played it, and I feel like I've unpacked it on here before, so I won't do it all again. But there are some systems in play that stop total pay to play. For example, like the highest tier cards, you have to be, I think, level 20 to unlock them. I've played the game a lot, probably have 20-ish hours logged into the multiplayer, and I think I'm just past level 20 now. So it will take some time. Like, you do have to invest some time to get the best shit out there. Mm-hmm. But if you spend a lot of money, you can unlock all the cards early and then start grinding towards that level cap. But Battlefield 1 Battlefront 2 has some big problems. I think the progression system, I think Jay is right. I think that people wanted more progression, especially after how little there was in the first Battlefront from DICE. But the way they implemented it was poor.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with the way they implemented it, but it's just kind of like people have had asked for it for like so long, and like even as a company will they'll implement loot boxes into like their games, and that's what people got. It's like, you want a progression system, so here it is.
Right, and it almost feels like it is the product of a compromise.
Yeah.
In that EA or whoever, we don't really know who gets to make all this shots. Somebody says, "Look, we need microtransactions. We need some way to keep a continued revenue after players spend their X number of dollars to get the game in the first place." And somebody else says, "Well, the players been begging for progression," and so the natural conclusion was, "Well, let's pair the two." And who knows? I have no idea how the crystals would have kept selling if they were still in the marketplace now. But to me, as a consumer and not someone who knows the ins of the industry, to me the obvious answer would have been keep the loot system but put cosmetics in there. We have seen from data miners that there are cosmetics and character UI built into the game. We know that it's there. DICE has to unlock it. They're going to unlock it. It's inevitable. It's already built in. But those systems didn't make it from launch. Whether that's simply they weren't ready, or there's a more nefarious intent, which was to nickel and dime the community, I don't know. I would like to think they're not trying to be shitty. But the state of that game is currently in is wild. Yeah. And I don't think we're going to see a Siege style comeback with that game. Siege had different problems, but I don't think we're going to see the community that would have bought Battlefront in November and December and January come back whenever DICE gets their shit together in the second half of 2018.
So just to close this out, because we only do have like 10 minutes left, and I want to get to their stuff. I don't agree with what EA did with Battlefront 2, but I also don't agree with the overreaction that people had.
I'll co-sign that, Jay. Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it made national news, for crying out loud.
Yeah, well, I'll end the conversation on this. I don't think loot boxes are gambling.
No, they're not.
I don't, and I don't want government regulation in my games.
The Reddit freak out on that is out of control. It
is, and I especially don't want this government regulating my games. Let me just say that. So I'll go next, and I'll be brief. I mean, this is a difficult year for disappointment. I don't really like my biggest disappointment this year, in a year of highs and not many lows, is Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And anybody who follows me on Twitter at Mr. Megative has seen my up and down tweets about this matter. It is a good game that is trying its best to get me to actively hate it at every turn. And I described this on Enrique's podcast the other night as it has the skeleton of a good game, but it lacks the moving parts of one. If that makes any sense. For example, the world of Alrest, which is the world you're playing in, is beautiful. I mean, there's beautiful vistas, and the sense of scale and scope and grandeur is just you rarely see that. I mean, it's just, especially on something like the Switch, it is just, I mean, you walk out into Gormott province, and the entire game takes on I mean, every one of these continents is actually a Titan that's flying, so everything's on the back of these huge creatures. Mm-hmm. and it's breathtaking to behold. But then you go into the map, and I understand that it just recently got patched, but when the game launched, in order to see the map of where you were, you had to go into the overworld map, then you had to go to the map of the continent you're on, then you had to scroll down and find the area that you were currently in. I'm like, Jesus Christ, can I just fucking press a button and go to where I'm at? Can I please just go to where I'm at? Now you can do that. But it hasn't made, and all it did was yes, I can see the map quicker now, but it doesn't make it any easier to find your location, because the compass you have doesn't tell you. So, like, for example, like, it's kind of like Skyrim, like if you're moving in a certain direction, it says, okay, you're 500 yards from this, from your exclamation point. And if it's above or below you, it'll have an arrow pointing up or an arrow pointing down. But these slightest change in gradients will change that arrow up or down. So as you're going like over hills, as you're running over hills and stuff, that arrow will change up and then down and then up. And I'm like, where the fuck am I going? So I have spent 50 hours in the game, and I have spent probably a good 20% of that wandering in circles trying to figure out where the fuck I'm supposed to be at.
Jeez.
I shouldn't have to do that in any game. I shouldn't have to do that. And then let's talk about the side quests. The side quests are exactly what you would expect, right? Like, go here and do this and fetch me this and then take it here, right? Or I lost my son. I know you're trying to save the world, but he went off picking flowers and he's not back yet. Can you go find him? Or like, hey, I know that there's an angry god who's been resurrected, and he wants to destroy everything. But look, I could really use some prime rib. So if you could go out and kill 10 rabbits for me and bring me back some prime rib, that would be fantastic. And your character's not once. They never say, well, yeah, but we get this thing. It's like, we're going to help, right? Like, your character will actually, one of your party will look at you and say, we're going to help, right, Rex? And Rex is like, you bet we are. And it's like I literally, and it is the height of ridiculousness. There's a point in the game where, like, one of your main characters gets kidnapped, and you're like, we've got to go find her. We've got to go find her. And just to see, I went to one of the towns, and the guy's like, Rex, I'm trying to paint the perfect picture, and I could really use some new pastels. Could you go out and collect 10 of this herb? And Rex is like, absolutely. And I'm like, well, fuck her then. Like, I mean, like, it doesn't make any sense. And
it amazes me. It really does.
And when you combine that with the piss poor map, and the fact that, like, all of the fetch quests are dependent upon RNG, right? So, like, when it says, okay, go out to a dig point and get me 10 of this rock. If you go to that dig point, you may not get that rock, right? Like, there's like five different types of rock, and you may not get that fucking rock. So I spent upwards of an hour running around trying to get this rock to spawn. And at that point I was like, fuck it. Like, I don't care. I don't give a shit. And the really bad thing about it is that some of these side quests and some of the main quests are locked behind character progression. Like, for example, I'm on a quest right now where there's like a point where it says, okay, you can use your character's wind mastery in order to jump up to this high ledge, right? And I am, by the way, like 7 levels over what I need to be at this point, right? but the one character who can do this, his wind mastery is only at level 1, and I have to fulfill all these obligations on his skill tree to level it up. So the game literally comes to a fucking halt.
That's not right. That's
until I go around and grind this fucking ability to jump an extra 10 feet. When this character has fucking wings, it doesn't make any fucking sense. And having said that, oh, and by the way, yeah, the character design. Somebody in chat mentioned the character designs. Holy fucking shit at these character designs.
Well, it sounds like the Nintendo Switch got its Star Ocean. Dude,
I'm not even kidding you. Like one of the main characters, Pyra, who has, just, I mean, like, holy shit. There is literally a point near the beginning of the game where Rex is like, because she's his blade, so he's bonding with her, right? And like she says, reach out and touch my chest to bond with me, and I'm like, you've got to be fucking kidding me, right?
Pyra's design,
and so he reaches out, and to be fair, I'll give Rex credit. He's like, "Well, are you sure?" Because they've all got these horrible British accents, and she's like, "Yes, Rex, touch my chest, touch my core crystal." Of course, her core crystal is right between her two giant boobs. So he's like, he reaches out and touches her, and I'm like, "Please don't walk in, Vicky. Please don't walk in, Vicky." And there's one moment where she, like, Pyra is having a little, it's called a heart to heart. You'll find these little icons, and it's like two hands, like shaking hands. You have a heart to heart. Two characters will have a heart to heart, and Pyra is having a heart to heart with one character, and it's this deep, moving character moment, and it literally pans down to her midsection. It's a sideways shot of her ass, and I'm like, why? Like, why? Like, why are we looking at this? What's the fucking point? And so I mean, the battle system, great. World design, fantastic. The story, very interesting. I'm invested in all these things, and I really want to finish this game, and I want to see the end of it. I want to see how it all ends. But unfortunately, I've got to fucking grind out the one fucking ability that this fucking character to jump an extra 15 feet, and he's got fucking wings. Why can't he pick the characters up one by one and just fly them up? But no, I've got to go cause 80,000, or I've got to go cause 8,000 damage points to like 2 rabbit breeds, and I've got to fuck like the shit you got to do to grind this stuff out in order to progress is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And sorry, Zach, I know. Like, I'll be quick, and I'm talking about fucking map design. I'll end it there. I will eventually finish Xenoblade Chronicles 2. But I jump in, and as soon as I start having fun, the game literally, like, Monolith just reaches in and snatches that fun away. Does that make any sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that's my Zach. Go right ahead, buddy. Sorry.
Yeah, no. I was just giving you shit.
I had to vent. If you couldn't tell, man, that's been building up.
No. Hey, for those of us who follow you on Twitter, we know how that game makes you.
It's been entertaining.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
I feel like John praises the Switch because he can pick it up and like play it on the couch with his wife, but Xenoblade Chronicles 2 is the only game he can't do that. So
I can't do that. Not just because it's like practically a hentai fest, but also because the game looks like straight butt.
Yeah,
handheld. Like that is not a good looking game on handheld. Anyway, Zach, please.
Yeah, so when I tell you what my disappointment game is, you're gonna think, "Holy shit, I forgot that game exists," or "Holy shit, I forgot it came out this year." My disappointment of 2017 is Yooka-Laylee.
Holy crap! I forgot that exists.
Shit, right? I wasn't even thinking about that.
It's Banjo-Kazooie made by people who really didn't really make Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah. Right, yeah. Well, no, it is Banjo-Kazooie made by people who were around at Rare, yeah. Well, and what's
around at Rare, but it doesn't mean like the original team.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was bad, which is what's always so disappointing, but we see it kind of frequently with Kickstarter games. More frequently than I'd like to anyway. But yeah, Yooka-Laylee was not a good game. It had the structure of everything I liked about the original Banjo-Kazooie games. It had the corny characters, the jokes, but also had lazy map design, which required a lot of retreading. It had a bad camera, which I understand has been patched since its April launch. But it just flopped for me. As somebody who kickstarted it, as somebody who got a copy as a Kickstarter, it just didn't resonate with me the way I was hoping it would. Yeah, it was funny. I actually had to Google this before the show to make sure it did come out this year, and then I was like, oh, it must have been like January. It came out in fucking April, and I couldn't remember it. Like I remember Resident Evil 7 clearly, but Yooka-Laylee is just like this little blip.
Well, you know what's crazy, Zach, is that I heard that the Switch version runs better than either the PS4 or the Xbox One.
It actually got polished.
Well, yeah, right, yeah. Well, and it's kind of like, I mean, different, and I won't get into the tangent of it. But PUBG on console still has clear issues, but also has some of the fixes that 1.0 has too.
Yeah.
So yes, so while it is weaker hardware, it also has 8 months of iteration and polish.
That's true.
Yeah, and who knows? Maybe that'll be a platform where the game would feel fine because this is another zesty take. We all lower our expectations when we play games on Switch. I know, spicy. But yeah, Yooka-Laylee was just not a great game for me. I don't think it's an awful game, but as somebody who really wanted to get back into the golden era of 3D platformers, Yooka-Laylee was not it.
I feel like it tries too hard to try to recreate the golden age. And the thing is, it's like Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Like those games had like charm. Like they weren't like the best platformers, but like they had charm. Like that's what made them appealing. It was like, it was like black comedy. It was like toilet humor. It was cute. It was fun.
Right,
and then Yooka-Laylee has none of that.
Yooka-Laylee is just like kind of a grunting character, and then Platonic Games is just like, "Are you nostalgic yet?" And like,
have you guys ever like seen its videos of people like recreating like Ocarina of Time, but like Unreal Engine 4?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yooka-Laylee is like that. Like it just does not like feel like a Banjo-Kazooie game.
Yeah, like it.
Zach, it was described to me, and tell me if you agree with this. I have not played the game, but I know several people who have, and one guy said it's like an N64 game in 2017, and everything that comes with that. He said aside from the visuals, there is no evolution at all.
Yeah,
right,
and maybe that's the problem. And one of the things that I found particularly challenging or frustrating originally, I think they've changed, but it used to be like, hey, you need this number of pieces to get to the final boss battle. I'm like, I fucking hate that in games.
I don't like that either.
Yeah, it's just bad because, for a lot of reasons, for a lot of obvious reasons, that's bad. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it does have a lot of Nintendo 64 era baggage. And when I'm 8 years old on the couch in my pajamas on a Saturday morning, I'm willing to go back to places I've retread thousands of times before on other weekends because I didn't have very many games. But like when I'm an adult who works and I can afford, many different games throughout the year, I'm not willing to keep playing the same map over and over again so I can get to that final boss battle.
Well, Yooka-Laylee is not really Banjo-Kazooie, but it's more like the Croc of modern platformers. You guys remember Croc?
Yeah,
I do actually. Yeah, holy shit!
It was supposed to be like a Yoshi game, but then like they lost the license into Yoshi.
Yeah.
So like, make it, yeah.
Well, and like so, I think the other problem for Yooka-Laylee is, especially now that it's on Switch, is that you're talking about a game that exists in a post Super Mario Odyssey world.
Yeah.
And that is, and Jay, I know you're not the biggest Mario fan, but on the Switch, there is no going against that fucking juggernaut.
No, I'm not going to disagree with you there.
I mean, it's the same thing as Super Lucky's Tale. If Super Lucky's Tale came out, I mean, obviously it wouldn't have the same polish, but if Super Lucky's Tale came out in August or before, that game would have a higher Metacritic. But it came out a week after Super Mario Odyssey, and so all the blemishes were huge, oozing pimples on that game when it came out to critics.
Yeah, I think the biggest problem that Yooka-Laylee has is that like this year was the year of the platformers. Like it was trying to bring back a Nintendo 64 like era platformers, but then we had like Sonic Mania come out a couple months later, and that just that was supposed to recreate the Genesis Sonic, and it just blew it away.
Right.
There's so many other games that are trying to recreate like other platform errors that just like surpassed it.
Why can't we just recreate Turok?
I think the way I want to summarize my disappointment with Yooka-Laylee is like this. Instead of recreating a feeling with Yooka-Laylee, Platonic Games decided to remake the foundation, the skeleton, right?
Yeah.
And so everything there works. The shitty camera is by design retro.
Mhm.
but you can have modern sensibilities while still inspiring the same sense of whimsy and discovery and exploration. We saw that with Mario Odyssey.
And I feel, Zach, that's interesting you say that, because there are opportunities for a clever developer there to take those tropes from the N64 era and actually integrate them in meaningful ways into the game. And a really good example of that is Axiom Verge. If you haven't played Axiom Verge, it's a callback, a very good callback to the original Metroid. And the original Metroid had these glitches that would happen all over the place. And yeah, they're not supposed to be there, but in Axiom Verge, Tom Happ, who designed the game by himself, actually recreated those glitches and gave you a glitch gun. And you had to use the glitch gun in order to smooth the glitches out and make it past certain areas. You could use the glitch gun to glitch enemies out, and they would look just like they did in the old Metroid on the NES. Everything would glitch out, but there was a purpose behind it, and it was a really interesting way of almost kind of honoring those old blemishes and warts on Metroid and saying, okay, we're going to take something that didn't work then and actually integrate it into the game in a very clever manner. And I feel like there was an opportunity for that for that there in Yooka-Laylee, and the developers just either didn't see it or didn't care to do anything with it.
Yep.
But okay, you know what? We're about 7 minutes over, so we should probably go ahead and bring it to a close. Great episode, guys. It's good to be back. Sorry for the long hiatus. I think some people didn't expect this to go live tonight, but we did. But I can promise that we are back in the saddle, and we will be back next week, hopefully with our friend Anthony Agnello from Continue Podcast, formerly of Games Radar. And we will talk about our game. Each of us are going to go over our game of the year and our runner-up for 2017.
Ooh,
and I'm actually going to have a glass of water with me to wash down the spice, because I know some of this shit is going to be zesty. I'm going to do that from now on. Actually, I'm going to have a glass of water. And I'm going to take a sip every time there's some zest on this podcast. Unfortunately, Brandon was a no-show. I don't know what happened to him. And I guess Finn he's like maybe he's probably not even home yet. But anyway, Sam, thanks for hopping in and playing a fourth wheel, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Anytime you need me, I'm here. Love talking to you guys.
And
great stuff.
yeah, no, it was just one of those nights where like a bunch of the cat, because December, especially like around Christmas and New Year's, it's just hard to schedule.
Oh,
and I was like, I don't care if it's just fucking me. Like we're going live.
going
I don't give a shit, and it could just be me.
Hey guys, it's the crew, aka me.
It's just me.
Anyway.
It's just me. I'll do like sock puppets, and here's JT, and here's Zach. And I'll do that number right there. I'll do that shit if I have to. But I was like, we're fucking going live. But
Well, that's what's going on. Is the crew's trying to get you to finally cave to the Saki train. They're trying to isolate.
I'll do it. Oh, and by the way, speaking of Saki, I want to congratulate our boy Finn for getting engaged. That's fucking awesome, dude. We love you, buddy. Could not be happier for you. But please, I think this is our last podcast before the end of the year. 2018 is going to bring some big things for this podcast. I think some of us will be at PAX East again. In 2018, I can tell you that I will be on a panel. I can't tell you what panel. I can't tell you how many panels. There may be more than one panel that I'm on. But I will be on a panel again at PAX East, and I hope to share more details about that with everybody outside of the podcast in the future. And I will not be the only one there. I think JT's going to go. Zach, were you going to go to? Were you going to?
There was some talk around it. Some of the resale tickets are all that's available on places like eBay, and the prices are pretty high. So I'm not thinking I'll make it, but that's all right.
Hey, there's always PAX West, man.
It's true.
There's PAX. Jay, are you planning on making it? Are you going to make the trip to PAX East?
I hadn't thought about it.
Okay.
To be honest.
Well, I know I'll be there, and I know that JT will be there. I know that Finn will be there, and I think Maddie's going to be there as well. So there should be at least 4 of us there. But we'll be doing a live broadcast from the hotel room, just like we did last time, and you may see some very interesting guests pop in. I wish I could tell you guys more about the panel, because it's super cool, and I'm going to be on the panel with somebody that is very, very well known. But I will share more details about that later. Does anybody have anything else for the group before we sign off here?
Yeah, actually one thing, it's something that we've talked about. I'm obviously I just joined a couple months ago. But one thing we kind of talked about as a small group earlier is ways that we can make the podcast better in 2018. Obviously, we're happy doing what we're doing, but we also want to do what you guys like. So if there's something that you think is working well, tell us. But if there's also something that you'd like to see us hone in, whether that's more subjects, less subjects, more streams outside of the Thursday podcast, whatever, tell us what you like. We won't necessarily go with every suggestion we have, but I think the one thing we always want to do is listen to what you guys like.
We would really appreciate that. I mean, this is going to be the year where we really try to grow the podcast, especially leading up to PAX East. So if everybody in chat could do me a favor, it's just simple stuff like retweeting. If you guys could retweet when we're going live, retweet everything you see about the podcast. It takes 2 seconds. We would really appreciate that assistance. Help us get the word out. Because it's a super competitive environment on YouTube, and we would really like to kind of grow and expand as much as we can. We don't want to get huge, massive or anything, but it would be nice to get some more people in chat. Even though I love you guys in chat. Yeah, we really appreciate everybody sticking with us. It's been an awesome ride, and I think 2018 is going to bring some very interesting things for you guys. So if anybody, like Zach says, has any input as to how we can make it better or anything you want to see from us, like I think we're planning on doing a weekly game night starting next week, I think, Zach. Obviously the podcast will always be the focus of SDGC because this is just what we do, and I think we're good at it. But there are going to be small things we're doing on the channel as well to try to expand our audience. Yep. Anyway, guys,
if you have any suggestions, just hit us up on our Twitter, which is SDGC _ podcast.
Yep. And Jay actually runs that Twitter. He does a hell of a job too. In fact, Jay does such a good job. I haven't had to touch it because Jay is all over it.
It's been kind of dead this month because we've been kind of dead this month, but Ruby,
that's just December.
We're gonna be back in alive in 2018.
Just keep the best coming. Just keep it coming.
I'm gonna read all the suggestions. If you guys send suggestions,
In fact, Jay, are the podcast DMs open?
I don't know actually. I will make them open if they're not open after the show.
Cool, awesome. Yeah, and if anybody has any suggestions for the show, please DM Jay at SDGC _ podcast, and Jay will relay them back to the rest of us.
Yep.
Okay, guys, it's been great. It's been fun. And as always, it's not always poetry, and we don't always agree, but we always keep it real. So until next week with our Game of the Year show, everybody take care of each other and keep on keeping on.
Did you know that in years about robots, they make love?